So, I'm going to talk about the last few weeks in regards to this channel, TikTok, stuff in general. The very short version is I put out a video. It's on YouTube in my Shorts feed, and I also put it out on TikTok that pointed out that the purchase of the Hogwarts Legacy game is going to contribute and empower transphobia because J.K. Rowling benefits from every sale, both financially and also in terms of maintained relevance, attention, and clout. And all of those things, her wealth and the attention that she has from eyes on her and the clout that she is granted by being the creator and owner of a massively successful property, are currently all being wielded against trans people, particularly in the UK where she lives. And that, I knew there were people who wouldn't want to hear that. I was aware of that. But honestly, no matter what you might think, I wasn't trying to poke the bear. I made what seemed like a pretty straightforward statement. Her wealth and influence is being used to harm trans people. If you buy that game, or honestly, any Harry Potter related material, you are contributing to both of those because the maintained relevance of Harry Potter is where her clout and the attention comes from, and also where her money comes from. So that seemed like a very straightforward thing to point out. Well, for the last few weeks, I have been dealing with the biggest onslaught of targeted mass harassment that I have had to deal with in 13 or so years on social media in the way that I am. So what happened? Well, short version is that the video here on YouTube got ratioed and is, at time of recording, still being absolutely flooded with the kinds of comments that under normal circumstances I would be deleting. It is coming in so hard and so fast and so persistently for so long, I had to do something I've actually never had to do on YouTube before, which was abandon the comment section on that short. I normally take a lot of pride in moderating my comment section. But at a certain point, I just had to, I literally was getting nothing else done. Because a normal day for me, separate from all this, is maybe, on a bad day, maybe a dozen comments that I need to clear out. People I need to ban from being able to comment. That's at most. It's probably on a normal day more like half that. I was instead, when this was going on, dealing with, actually at the point I abandoned it, I started looking at it and, keeping track how quickly are these coming in. It was 2 to 3 a minute, which doesn't sound that bad until you start running the math and realize that if we average that out to say 2.5 a minute on average, that's 150 hateful comments that normally I would be deleting per hour. And once we are into full days, and I've been dealing with this for, at time of recording, about a week. It had been at its worst for about 3 days and could very well have continued. So after recording up until the upload of this thing, then we're into multiples of thousands a day. I moderate my own comment section. I have mods for my lives, but the comments I do myself. It exceeded my bandwidth. I couldn't. I've never had to abandon a comment section before. And this is not my first time being targeted, but there were a lot of unique aspects to this. But it also wasn't only YouTube. TikTok was also flooded with hate comments. Now, I've been flooded with nonsense on TikTok before, and I don't have as much commitment to the integrity of a comment section on TikTok as I do on YouTube. So I've abandoned comment sections on there before. But I also started getting repeatedly reported for various false things. I had videos reported for depicting a crime, had those restored and appealed. I had videos reported for sexual conduct and nudity. I appealed those, had them restored. I was temporarily banned off my account because I was reported by multiple people as being under the age of 13. I did get the account restored after that. I went through a lot of this for a while, and then eventually the account did just flat out get banned. And I know why it was banned, but I don't know the justification. Because it was banned because it was mass reported, and I feel comfortable in saying falsely so. But exactly what the justification was, I don't know, because TikTok won't tell me. They told me banned for community violations. It doesn't say what the violations are, just says community violations. I attempted to appeal, but because they wouldn't tell me what it was I actually did wrong, I had to try and build a defense over an accusation I was not allowed to know. And shock, my appeal was denied. Whether it's because they were going to deny it no matter what I said, or because I defended myself against the wrong freaking thing, I will never know. And so my account got killed. This is actually the second time I've had my account killed, but last time it wasn't from targeted harassment like this was. As I said, I'm very confident that it was a mass reporting, but I don't know the rationale or the excuse given. So that's what I've been dealing with. How is this different from crap I've already been through? Because like I said, not entirely my first rodeo, but this is different in a number of ways. Because the last two times this has happened to me, it has been when videos of mine have been specifically targeted by much larger entities on the platforms that I'm on, and particularly on YouTube at the time. And then their followers would descend specifically on those videos, but also on my channel in general. First time that ever happened was with a creator called Bearing, who, not just on me, also did it to Jackson Bird and I think somebody else as well, took snippets out of context of videos pointing out issues with, at the time, the casting of Scarlett Johansson as a trans man for a project that ultimately did not move forward with her in that part. But at the time, it was very frustrating and upsetting. And a number of trans people expressed that, and snippets were taken to make us look irrational and unstable. And so his followers descended on me. The other one was Blair White, who took a video off of my Vera Wild channel, which is a separate channel where I discuss a number of things, and in particular about my existence as a gender fluid person, as well as some product reviews and things of that nature. But she took a video and took snippets and decided to pull apart the concept that I was trans without having dysphoria, which was the main focus of the video she pulled from. Now, she did a couple of other stuff. She included discussions of and images of a completely different trans person who claimed to not have dysphoria, who had apparently also threatened her. Now, she didn't claim I was also that person, but she also intercut us without ever saying we were two different people. So I not only had her fans descend on my channel, but had them descend on my channel falsely believing that I had threatened her when I had, I still have literally never interacted with her directly and had never spoken about or even really knew much about her before all this had happened. It didn't matter. Now, I couldn't actually say that she falsely accused me of threatening her, because technically she didn't. She just cut together a very lazy video that made it easy to assume that. But that's what I've dealt with before. The thing is, both those times, there was an individual. There was a specific creator who decided that I was a viable target and tried to do something that is a takedown of me or a position I had, or otherwise did something towards me, and then their followers came at me after that. That's not what happened with the Hogwarts Legacy short. There, I was never, to the best of my knowledge, targeted, acknowledged by, quote, tweeted or tagged by J.K. Rowling or anyone involved in that game. but I got assigned the straw man of the month regardless. It's a very odd experience being turned into a straw man. If you're not familiar with that term, a straw man argument is where you create an image of someone holding the opposing view that you have that does not need to be based on reality. A decently constructed straw man will have elements of reality, but you basically create an image of this is the kind of person I'm arguing against, and then you argue against that imagined version of a person. And it's something that happens a lot. And the severity of it and the degree of it, it can go a lot of ways. But it's a very common thing that happens to some degree or another. Pretty much anytime you ever hear anyone talk about the SJWs, the conservatives, the liberals, whatever group, and for the audience they're talking to, they're trying to create a very specific image, even though they are describing a group, that's a straw man. And the thing about being chosen to be a straw man, which is what happened with this harassment campaign towards me, is that when they've decided that you're going to fit their straw man narrative, what you actually did and actually said doesn't matter. They're going to continue to rail against the straw man version of you, not actually you. What do I mean by that? Well, good example would be some of the common refrains that I had in the comment section before I had to completely abandon it, which was that in a video where I said this,
if you buy the Hogwarts Legacy game, you are contributing to transphobia.
I was told that I was calling everyone who bought that game transphobic. And I didn't. I actually was incredibly specific with my wording in that short. There is a reason I said contributes to transphobia and not is a transphobe. I did not say makes you a transphobe if you do this. The closest I've ever come to saying anything like that was in the video that I did on Hollow Allyship, where I pointed out that buying that game does mean that you really shouldn't be calling yourself an ally. But being not an ally is also not being a transphobe. There are lots of people who are just hanging out in the middle, not really doing either one, which can still be a problem, but that's really not what I'm getting into. I never equated you're either ally or you're transphobe. I've never done that. And in that short, I never said buying that game makes you transphobic. I summed this all up actually rather succinctly in a tweet a couple days ago, and simply pointing out, you buy this game, you're contributing to the ability of a transphobe to continue to hurt trans people. And I started getting inundated with a lot of nonsense, including death threats and encouragements of self-harm. And when I pointed that out, I did quite literally, especially on TikTok, because I did start a new account and they immediately found me again, which means that there's probably a Discord server somewhere passing my information around at a guess. But even the people who acknowledged the death threats, that was with a sentiment that included, well, you shouldn't have called people bigots. You shouldn't have called people transphobes. It was my fault for getting death threats, for saying something I did not say. But that's what the straw man version of me said. In their minds, that's what I said. Because in their minds, I was not the person in that video. That's why so many of the comments that I'm still getting say things like, cry harder, stay mad. I'm not crying in that video. I don't raise my voice. I'm smiling at the end of that thing. I wasn't mad. I wasn't crying. But they didn't see this. They saw this. Because that's what they wanted me to be. That's the straw man they decided I was. It's hard to know how long this will last. I imagine, or I hope, that within a week or two of the release of Hogwarts Legacy, when just the nature of the limited attention span of the culture, people will move on to the next hotness. But the thing is, that thing I said casually a few minutes ago, I bet you my name is getting moved around in Discord servers somewhere or some other manner in a way that I can't be certain of. And I'm fairly confident in that because of how quickly they found my second account. Because, like, especially on TikTok, I've just had the algorithm do me dirty. I've just had the algorithm put my stuff in front of people who, didn't want to see it, and they weren't my audience, and they were mean to me. And while that's not great, that is just a thing that happens. But when that happens, when you make a new account, the algorithm is basically wiped clean. You're not suddenly going to be put back in front of the same people again. They had to find me, and they found me immediately, which meant they were looking for me, which means that they were, to some degree, coordinated. I don't think there's any more coordination than there's some transphobic Discord somewhere that's like, hey, she made a new account, get her. I don't think it's anything more than that. I don't think anyone's plotting in a war room. I don't think I matter that much. But I'm on a list of viable targets now amongst some of these people. And what that means is, while I expect this will die down in a matter of a few weeks, my accounts will probably be targeted again whenever a major piece of Harry Potter is on the horizon or coming out. And here's a fun additional thing that's happened since I shot this. Apparently somebody found my FetLife profile and decided to be real cute to try and threaten me with that fact. Which on the one hand is kind of funny with how stupid it is. Yes, I have sexuality. For crying out loud, it's publicly known I have an OnlyFans. Are you really thinking you can shame me with that? But on the other hand, actually actively pisses me off because they're also threatening my partners in this. So, yeah, they are trying to dig up anything they can, which probably means that this is going to last a bit longer than I predicted. Yay! Because this is a recurrent thing for people who have been targeted by these sorts of groups, these sorts of outlets, by things like Gamergate. They don't lose the lists of names of people that they decided it was okay to harass. They keep those names and they go back to them. And so if I'm lucky, I'll be considered a low enough priority that it won't be this massive again. But part of the intent of this is to silence me, to get me to delete that video, to get me to say I misspoke. I didn't. As I said, I chose my words very carefully. I did not misspeak. And I stand by what I said. And they want me silenced. They want me to flee, or they want to be able to shut me down, which on TikTok they did. And I don't even think it's for any reason other than this is a reflexive instinct from a certain circle of, yes, transphobes, but also just edgelords, just trolls. It's a mix, and it's hard to parse how many of these people genuinely have distinct animosity for me and how many of them are just jumping in on a harassment campaign because that's their idea of fun. I don't know. I'll never know. It doesn't really matter. The thing is, I know I've only gotten a taste of what so many people, queer people, trans people, women, people of color, fat people, disabled people, members of all these groups are targeted for harassment on a regular basis. And I know that while this is the worst I've had to deal with, it is a fraction of what people even dear friends of mine have dealt with. My friend Jesse Gender was specifically targeted by J.K. Rowling, was tagged by her. And when that happened, it waved a signal flag for everyone who is either a fan of J.K. Rowling or is piggybacking off her statements as an excuse to harass people, because again, they think it's fun. They went after her. She's a very close friend of mine. She's my podcast co-host, and I know she had it worse than I have had it. I can only begin to imagine what some other people have gone through, not just in things relating to J.K. Rowling, but things like Gamergate, as I said. These campaigns of harassment, be they spontaneous or organized, they are depressingly a fact of life on the internet, which is not a reason to just be like, what are you going to do? No, it's messed up. Something should happen. Exactly what? I don't know. Step one for me is remaining visible. I'm fortunate enough to have been on YouTube long enough to have some degree of standing here, some degree of clout. TikTok don't care. TikTok doesn't give a crap. I'm a very fortunate person, and I know that. The fact that I get to do this for my living is an amazing privilege. And it's a privilege that a certain type of person wants to turn into a nightmare in the hope that I will go away. And they won't have to hear me point out that buying official Harry Potter products contributes to transphobia. That's it. That was what I said. They don't want to hear it. And the people who don't want to hear it come in all flavors. From the people who will debate the premise and fight the very concept that J.K. Rowling is transphobic, usually quoting things from her from what she said 2.5 years ago and ignoring anything she's said in the last 2 years, or, paying attention to the full meaning of what she said. There are the people who simply claim that, you can't tell me what to do. There are people who try and twist it so that I am a harm to the trans community because I make them look stupid. I'm sure the straw man version of me does, but I stand by what I said. And then there's those who flatly wish me harm, who talk about wanting to play that game and to use Avada Kedavra on trans people. Which is not how the game's designed to work, by the way. It's single player, it's not multiplayer. But the point is that whatever rationale people would have, it was rare for it to be presented without a side serving of abuse. Whether they argue that my suggestion that pirating is at least more acceptable than buying the game outright is somehow a moral failing on my part, that would also include stains on my character and name calling and threats. Whether it be, you can't tell me what to do, it would be accompanied with, shut the fuck up. None of these arguments would ever be presented without abuse, without excessive capitalizations, without exclamation points, without slurs. Some of them would, not a lot. It's just what my life trying to do my job has been for weeks now. And the fact that even those who can bring it upon themselves to say, okay, you shouldn't have gotten death threats, but, and then they have something to say after that but. Oh, and let me be clear about something. Nobody should be getting harassed. Not me, not rolling, not people streaming this stupid fucking game. I don't do it. I don't condone it. And I shouldn't have to condemn it. It is not my job to denounce the actions of shitheads. Just to clarify what I'm talking about here, the current narrative is that trans activists are harassing, bullying, and shouting at streamers who are streaming the game and causing them to cry or leave their streams or what have you. For as many stories as I see run about this harassment, they all seem to cite the exact same incident. An incident from which the most widely circulated clip does not show the chat. But yes, it is still possible it has happened. And while harassment is not okay, ever, why exactly am I asked to denounce the handful of incidents that appear to have happened? I'm expected to denounce this while other people tell me that I brought the harassment I'm suffering onto myself. I'd ask you to make it make sense, but it never will, so don't bother. So this is not a call to action. Nor was the short. The short wasn't even a boycott. I never said the word boycott. The point was never to actually make the dev studio go bankrupt or to financially starve J.K. Rowling. That was never going to happen. I knew that. It was a request to take into consideration the impact of your purchasing choice and to consider at least one other viable option. That's what it was. But you wouldn't know that from the comments. To look at the comments, you would assume that with tears in my eyes, I screamed, anyone who buys this game is transphobic. Because that's the version of me that they responded to, despite the fact that it didn't exist. When that video first went up, I was replying to some of the bad faith pushback. I was pointing out I didn't actually say that. But even before the absolute flood of hate comments came in, I gave up trying to do that because I realized they don't care what I actually said. It never mattered what I actually said. That's part of what getting ratioed is. It is drowning out the original voice with something else. Maybe, depending on the nature of the ratio, with a correction, with a logical fallacy, or maybe it's drowning it out by painting over an absurd, screeching caricature of a woke SJW and plastering that over a human being. Acting as if that's who I was and that's who I am. And trying to bend people's perception so that everyone would treat me that way, at the very least in the comment sections of that video. But it's not who I am. I know who I am. More to the point, I know that you don't. And so with that knowledge, I move forward. And if you bought that game, I hope you enjoyed it. I actually mean that sincerely. It would really suck that you put money that went towards someone who is doing as much damage as J.K. Rowling is doing, and you didn't even get a good game out of it. That would actually be kind of crap. If you got it, I hope you enjoyed it. The impact is still what I said it was. Doesn't make you a transphobe. It doesn't make you my enemy. Depending on how well you are acquainted with the situation, it may make you someone who has chosen to not do the simple act of failing to buy a thing in order to support trans people. I mean, maybe. Some people probably aren't aware. They're still contributing. That's a notion that makes people so angry. Truth hurts. The thing is, I don't have a big platform. If I told a lie, you could just ignore me and move on. If I truly told a self-evident lie, you wouldn't have to shout me down because people wouldn't listen. I'm not anybody of note. I'm barely known within the Doctor Who freaking community. But if you know what I say has truth to it, there's a reason to shout that down. There's a reason to drown that out. And that's the thing about all these comments all saying the exact same thing. It's not about actually confronting what I said. It's about drowning it out. And in that comment section of that video, I suppose they did. But in terms of me going forward, day to day, no. Still here. Still trans. Look at that. I didn't shut up. I almost said sorry. But no. I love to talk. I'm lucky enough to do it for a job. And I'm going to keep doing it. And thank you for listening to me talk. If you want to support what I do, Patreon is the best way to do so. That is the most reliable form of income that I have. YouTube is a little bit more erratic. And you'll also find a lovely community of people on the Patreon. There's a Patreon-exclusive Discord, amongst other perks. Consider that. But even if you can't, other things that I do you can follow down in the description. But don't worry too much about that. Leave your comments. Let me know what you thought. Be respectful. Do not harass me or other commenters. But ultimately, what I really want you to remember is that even as we go through all this, you are beautiful. You are valid. And you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings best as I can, despite the riffraff. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now my thanks to my highest supporters on Patreon. Robin Moore, Zubin Lafula, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leo the Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabilax, the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. And if you want to get your name in the credits, check out the rewards on the Patreon.